secret, yeah. The secret lazy, yeah, yeah, yeah. The secret.
Hi, welcome to The Secret. My name is Bevan. On today's show, I have a very special guest by the name of Mr Joe Fidow. Joe Fidow has been kind enough to come in and do an interview with me today in regards to his music career in the late or early 90s. For those who know Joe's history, obviously know his background in music and the great the part he shared in this culture. For those who don't, I'm going to do a brief introduction to Joe's history and the time he had in the music industry. Joe was a pioneer in the R&B music and culture in the late or the early 90s, I should say. He has dedicated over or close to 30 years of his life to music and still passionately does so today. Joe was also instrumental and was in part a creator of one of the first successful R&B boy bands in Australia at that particular time. Known to us as Culture. For those who know who I'm talking with. Culture went on to achieve some of Australian music industry's highest achievements and also achieving a gold album. With hard work and dedication came success, which in turn landed them major support acts and on televisions throughout Australia. Also sharing the spotlight and the stage with you were your three band members, Richard, Jay, and Eric Palu, to my understanding. Joe, this is only the tip of the iceberg on a broad career in the music industry and quite a successful one. And I just wanted to say again, welcome to The Secret and thank you for sharing this.
Thank you for having me on.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Mate, the first question, and it's not going to be a question, did you ever in your wildest dreams see this becoming what it did at that time?
No, I actually, it's still taunting on me the moment I actually arrived and at the scene and to my surprise, and the rest was history. The
rest was history. And we're talking, what year are we talking roughly when this had occurred?
This happened early 1993.
Early 93. And Australia was quite, wasn't so R&B orientated per se. We never had any at that particular time. It was time. New. But it was a buzz. You meeting Matthew O'Connor, how did this come about?
Okay, so I arrived in Sydney late 92.
Yep.
I stayed with a friend by the name Michael Solway.
Okay, yes.
Shout out to Michael.
No, Michael.
Michael lives in Sydney.
Uh-huh.
And I'm originally from Brisbane.
Yep.
And so I stayed with Michael, and my first day arriving in Sydney was on a Friday afternoon, and Michael took me out to a nightclub.
In Sydney? In Sydney.
This is my first ever.
Just arrived.
Just the first.
Came in by coach and.
Okay, so I travelled down by Greyhound.
Yep, Greyhound bus.
On the bus.
Know it well.
And I got off at Sydney Central. I caught the train to Michael's house out in Fairfield.
Yep.
And so then Michael wanted to take me out to celebrate my first night in Sydney.
Right.
With a couple of his friends.
Okay.
And so we arrive at this place, and I'm pretty sure everyone's if you can remember Madness on George Street, the famous Madness nightclub.
I think anyone viewing this back in that day knows Madness.
Yes,
very well.
It was the most happening place at the time.
It was.
And Friday night that we went out, we celebrated on a night my first night in Sydney.
Big night out with the boys.
Big night out with the boys arriving from Brisbane. So I was stoked about that. I was happy. I was like, wow, this is huge, for Sydney. Because everyone knows that Brisbane's not a big major city.
Yeah, and everything in Sydney was very around each. All the clubs were sort of spread out, but you were in. Yes,
the Manders is one of the biggest clubs. I'm pretty sure there was like lots of others.
Yeah.
But this particular club, I arrived and I'm blown away.
Yeah.
Just
with the numbers.
Just the numbers of people. So
you guys get into the club. You're celebrating your night.
So we arrive and we had a table, and so we start the party.
Start the party.
The party was happening. The music was playing. A DJ by the name George B.
George B. Yes.
Shout out to George B. was pumping the sounds and so forth. And so we got in the bar and started ordering some Ruskies and
the Ruskies.
Sub-Zeros.
Who remembers the Ruskies and the Sub-Zeros with the cordial in it?
With that raspberry red flavour cordial.
I'm sure a lot of the ladies would remember that drink quite well.
Yes.
So as the night progresses, what eventuates?
Okay, so we a few hours into it, the body, you feel the
getting
the drinks,
feeling good.
And so we had a little dance, came back and sat down, and to my surprise, I hear my name over the speakers. The announcement came. I'm pretty sure Michael set this one up.
Yeah.
Well, he did, because that's the only reason why.
Yeah, they would have.
Yeah. So,
someone had to.
So my name came over the speakers, and I'm hearing it, and everyone's like, hey, your name. You have to get up and sing a song. So Michael had approached George B. and asked George B. if he has an instrumental to a track that I performed in Brisbane at a show.
Yeah.
And so I got up and okay. And this artist
George B has this instrumental.
George B happened to have this instrumental, and I was shocked, like who? Anyhow, I got up there. The artist's name I should mention, Shamari.
Yes.
If You Feel the Need.
Yes, classic.
Was one of the tracks that I performed at a show in Brisbane.
Okay.
And so
you do. So that's the number you do in Sydney.
That was my debut, man. Like,
how did that go?
I somehow I plugged up the courage to get up and dance. And sorry, I said it again. So I hear my name.
Yeah.
And George B had the instrumental playing.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was like an intro, like while waiting for me to get on stage. So I was like,
that's awesome.
Wow. So then he restarted when I started singing, and the crowd cleared the floor.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, wow. So
this would have been sort of
my moment of truth.
Wow. Because I mean, obviously and I don't have numbers wise, but Sydney used to pack out. The clubs used to.
Yes, this place was.
So this is
full.
your first major performance in Sydney.
Yes, so I performed, and now I finished and walked back to the table, and I sat down and a few more Ruskies. Everyone's high fiving, and it's like, wow, nice. That was great, And I'm still,
sort of coming off the high,
and another Rusky just calmed me right down.
And no stumbling through the track, nailed it.
I think I did pretty good. I was happy with that performance.
Yeah.
I sat down and had another Rusky and the red cordial, of course.
That's it, would have kicked in.
And it settled me.
Nice. So then from there, you're obviously back at your table. From there, what occurs?
Okay, so the next thing that happened was a person tapped me on the shoulder and handed over a business card. I looked, and Michael grabbed the card and put it in his pocket. He probably knew that I was too wasted or too.
You're in your moment. You're enjoying your moment.
I was enjoying my moment, so that's pretty much that.
Awesome. And obviously, this card that was given and tapped was
Yes. So this person that gave me the card is his name is Matthew O'Connor,
Yep.
and he was celebrating a Bucks night of his best friend at the time, George said. So it just happened to be, it just happened. I happened to be in the right place at the right time.
And Matthew becomes quite instrumental in the future and what occurs from this meeting.
So what I picked up from that was Matthew was in the music industry.
Yeah.
He was affiliated with artists and so forth, like record labels.
Yep.
And so that was like an eye opener for me. And to my surprise, he invited us to the studio.
Okay.
The
very next day, after all the shenanigans, you obviously you meet up, you go to the studio, I take it?
So Matthew gave me the business card and asked if I could meet him the next day, which is Saturday.
The Saturday, yeah.
But at that time, I was having too much fun. I didn't pay too much attention to it.
Yeah.
After that night, I woke up in the morning. Michael woke me up in the morning. Thanks, Michael, again.
And not to cut your word there, at that time you were quite the ladies' man.
Well, I was young, and I can play the game. I can, I was a hustler.
Anybody that
in a
knows
nice
him
way.
knows him. So sorry, mate. So yeah, so you wake up, you go. You obviously you head out to the studio to meet.
So Michael woke me up in the morning.
Yeah.
And I had this, incredible hangover.
Yeah.
And I had to get dressed and stuff, and still not knowing what to expect from this meeting. We didn't speak too much about the business card. All I know is that I'm going to a recording studio to meet Matt.
Yeah. So you head out to the studio?
So we head out to the studio, Kent Street in the city.
Yes.
The studio was like a basement kind of setup.
Okay.
And so we arrive at the studio, and I saw equipment.
How old are you at this time, Joe?
At this time, I was 23.
23 years old.
Yes.
So this would have been like a kid in a candy store almost.
Absolutely.
Wow. So everything is there. Everything you dream of.
Everything I dreamed about, from equipment to a studio space to
it's tangible.
the microphone.
It's right in front of your eyes.
It was right in front of me.
So what happens from there? What occurs?
Okay, so now Matthew, quickly sat me down and said, look, last night was a really, that was a great performance, and I was really impressed with your performance that I wanted to talk to you about signing you as a solo artist / songwriter.
So this is the day after, and he's interested
Very next day,
wow.
Saturday, on my second day in Sydney.
So you hungover, you still feeling what's going through your head?
I mean, a lot.
Is this real?
Yeah, I was pinching myself. Is this really happening? As anyone would.
And what?
And so,
what? And the deal. So what was the cards? What was the deal?
Okay, so Matthew offered a contract. At this point, it's just a verbal agreement.
Sure.
But we initiated a little agreement, and I agreed to it. This has got to do with songwriting, and also, working on some tracks for my solo project.
Okay, so the offer is basically a co-writer.
Co-writer, yes.
Okay.
Matthew had at the time had a group that he signed, and this is Boys in Black, B.I.B.
Yes.
5 Polynesian brothers.
That's right.
Matthew had signed him to an independent label.
Sure. Okay.
And so he was actually in the process of producing
an album
for the boys.
Okay. And at that time as well, for the Sydney siders, Boys in Black was sort of the up and coming band in Sydney at that time.
Indeed.
So they were in the process of basically going to the next level of.
They had released More Than a Woman single.
More Than a Woman, yes.
This is right at the beginning, and so they needed some more singles.
And so you now find yourself in this realm of things that are happening.
Yes.
So this is quite.
It happened so quickly. I had no idea what the program was that he had. All I know is that I got something.
Yeah.
And it felt great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said to myself, well, here's my opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
A window of opportunity opened up, and I'm going to grab it with both hands and ride with it.
Why not?
That was my first ever, achievement in the music, just by scoring that solo
what an
and the
achievement
co-write.
that is.
And I was happy with that.
And I think what I'm going to do is as well, I'm going to bring it back to how this had all occurred prior to you meeting Matthew. But in saying that, so you then take this offer from Matthew, or what happens here? Like, where does it go from here?
I took this offer based on the songwriting for Boys in Black.
Yep.
And hoping that I would develop some tracks for myself for the solo project that he originally offered me.
And is to date, is there, how many tracks roughly have you or did you write for?
Okay, so I've written quite a few numbers of tracks for myself, and I had nothing for Boys in Black, and so now I'm in the process of creating some new tunes.
Okay. So just to get a clear understanding, so this deal goes through with Matthew. You're then scheduled into the studio, on a daily basis? How does it work from there?
So we work on a daily basis, like weeklies and stuff. So it was all depended on me.
Sure.
But like I said, I didn't rest.
So you're pretty much in there.
I pretty much.
That becomes your new home.
I dived straight into it, and I took the opportunity.
Okay.
It's like the rest was history.
And what occurs from there? So now you're writing for, obviously you're co-writing for Matthew. How were you working yourself into where?
Okay, so let me just let's just open this up a little bit for you.
Sure.
My real reason or my mission behind this whole thing was to set up my own group.
Okay.
Matthew offered me a solo career. I had to take that. It was a stepping stone to the next move that I wanted to. But my real hustle was to actually secure a deal for myself and two other friends from Brisbane.
And these two other friends are Richard and...
That's Richard Matilla and Jay Whitmore.
Okay. And obviously you were performing with these guys in Brisbane prior to coming to Sydney. So, okay, so you're in the process of this hustle now. So you're writing, co-writing, but in the same instance, you're also trying to work yourself into... you don't really want the solo, do you? You want the group.
So that was my little issue. I wouldn't say issue, but I wasn't satisfied with the solo because I wanted a group originally.
Sure.
So, but to take the offer is you gotta
you had to put your foot
your foot in there to actually
So how do you work? So how do you get to that? Where do you get to that conversation with Matthew in order for?
So during the process of writing for Boys in Black, I had some spare time to actually demo up some songs. And one day Matthew and I were in the studio and I said, Matt,
I think I might just have a better proposition for you.
Sure.
And he gladly, okay.
He was open to your suggestions.
He was open to it, and he asked, okay, what is it? Yeah. And so I had to pitch him the idea.
Wow. Okay.
Of this new group that I with the two friends I have in Brisbane, and Matthew's reaction was, okay, so how do we go about this?
Okay.
When can I hear the voice together with you?
Yeah.
It was kind of like after 7, the trio.
Babyface.
And so, but my bigger plan was to actually have a 4-piece harmony,
Sure.
4-piece members,
Yeah.
the group. And this wasn't about me. It was just like I had to make that decision based on the original plan that I had
Yeah.
in mind when I first arrived in Sydney.
And in saying that, I guess Richard and Jay are still in Brisbane.
Richard and Jay had no idea.
They had no idea what's going on.
And because I'm just going to take you back a little, right?
Yeah.
Richie and myself were in a band together.
Yeah.
And so we had the same goals. We wanted to actually form a group, but we didn't have extra 2 members to fill the spot. So we were scouting and we came across Jay Whitmore. Jay Whitmore was in another band, another 4-piece male group in Brisbane. In Brisbane, there were quite a few bands and groups with the Brisbane scene, night scene.
Well, it was sort of the thing happening then as well with the four part, like the Jodeci and that.
I guess because of the influence of the American sound that was coming in with Jodeci, like
Teddy.
you said, Teddy Riley, Guy. Then you have After 7, and there's many more. High Five.
Yeah.
And that music and that style grew in us. So we
that's what you based. Yeah.
We pretty much were influenced by these music.
That's right. Yeah.
Nightclub scenes as well really helped. DJs like DJ Remo was playing at a place called Decotech, and that's where I met Richard.
Okay.
And so we spoke then, and then not long after that we met Jay, and so we formed a group and we called ourselves Joe RJ.
Okay.
That was the first group, and this is the group that I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
That now we go back to the Sydney situation.
Yeah. So at that point now you've pitched this sale to
I pitched it to Matthew,
and he wants to
and Matthew wanted to hear.
Yeah. What you guys had to offer.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so me being in Sydney now in a perfect situation.
Yeah.
I can now work out something.
So how do you go about this?
So I said to Matt, well, if you want to hear 3 of us, you're going to have to fly the boys down.
Okay.
In order for you to hear 3 of us together. Now, I remember, like I said, I came down with no money.
Yeah.
I had no resources or money whatsoever.
Yeah.
I just
limited to resources. Yeah. Just hustle.
Just the pure hustle, man.
Yeah. So the boys fly into Sydney.
So Matt agreed to that.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt. And so Matt flew them to Sydney, flew Richie and Jay down.
Yep.
But this is in a few weeks.
Sure.
It didn't happen straight away.
So you're still writing, obviously you're still writing for...
Yes, like I said, I'm still in the process of co-writing with Matt for Boys in Black while I was trying to set this little project on the side for the group.
And you've never met Boys in Black prior to
No.
to coming to Sydney?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm going to just fast track it a bit. So it basically came down to a decision that had to be made between... Obviously, Matt now here's Jay and Richard, and so a decision gets made in regards to groups being who he's going to choose or what.
That's
what
right.
happens.
So fast tracking it to when Richie and Jay arrived.
Yeah.
We had auditioned for Matt in the studio, and Matthew loved it.
So what were you guys offering that was?
Okay, so we pretty much we listened to all R&B. Groups that were out at the time, but we had this sound. We kind of like the rough kids, the street vibes, and
more like the Jodeci,
more
that
like
edge.
the Jodeci edge kind of vibe.
Sexy bad boys.
Wear whatever we wanted and just be who we are. Like like we didn't want to change for anything. Like this is
keeping that street sort of street vibe. Yeah,
that's correct. And so that was pretty much our direction.
Yeah.
With our looks and the sound. And speaking of the sound, we wanted our music to be a lot, has that edge and that roughness to it. And so
Matthew loves it.
Matthew saw it and he heard us together, and
So what he keeps boys in black, or does he sort of drop them from the deal? What happens there?
I don't know what exactly happened to their deal with
Yeah.
Matt and the record label. All I know is that they were signed to an independent label, and I think from there, I wasn't quite sure exactly like in details of what happened.
Yeah.
All I know is that the deal went down, and the boys were released from the deal, and Matthew then took us on.
Matthew, if you watch this, I would love to do that part with you on The Secret. So, okay, so that happened. So you don't know, obviously, the finer details in regards to that. But obviously now you said the new flavour. How were you? Was it a competitive thing? I mean, did you feel like, we took them out? Did you guys still have a relationship? Because I mean, there would have been a bit of a.
Look, it was hard at the start because, you know, we were just the newcomers hanging around while the boys were cutting up their record and stuff. But we just, you know, pretty easygoing dudes.
And is my mate Eric, is he?
Okay, so Eric, not long after that, I think about a few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, we discovered Eric.
So you auditioned for the fourth.
That's right. So we were looking for a fourth member, and the story goes, we discovered Eric performing at Madness nightclub, singing and rapping, dancing.
Same spot you
where I was discovered.
Yeah, wow.
And so approached him, and
and the rest is history.
And the rest was history. Yes.
So you now have.
So now we auditioned for Matt with the four of us together.
Yep.
And we sang "You to Me Are Everything," the sweetest song that I could sing.
Oh baby.
And Matthew just
melted.
I guess, if that's the right word, Matt. But you did, jumped up and down, and
loved it. So Matthew'd also be going through his Rain Man, and he's like seeing like, okay, Joe. So what I want to do here is, I know we've spoken also in depth, and you were quite open in saying that you're quite willing to touch on a lot of areas in regarding to this time of your life, but there was also a particular time. So I'm not sure. I think you were currently in Sydney. You were telling me you were currently in Sydney. I think you were in Newcastle at the time, and at that particular time, you'd found yourself in a bit of trouble. You ended up becoming incarcerated, and but the story that this leads into is basically what puts you on the path to music. And could you elaborate on that for me?
Yeah, man. I first arrived in Australia back in 1988.
Yep.
I arrived in Sydney and moved to Newcastle, stayed with a close friends, or family friends, I should say.
Yeah.
The Royal Parties in Newcastle.
And where you are coming from, Samoa or?
Coming from Christchurch, New Zealand.
Okay, Christchurch.
New Zealand. Yeah, Christchurch, New Zealand. And so I arrived, and I lived with this family in Newcastle, and yeah, pretty much.
And what happens? What happens from there?
Okay, so I came over to look for work, and so I stayed with them. I tried out a few jobs.
Sure.
And during that time, I met some people, and I hung out with the wrong crowd, and I started seeing myself getting into trouble.
Yeah.
And
as you do as a young man.
Yes. And at this time now, I was around going 18, 19.
Okay.
And so
young, free, and
young, free, and single, and didn't give a shit. And so I found myself in situations, got into trouble with, breaking into houses and so forth, and
bit of a bad boy.
Bit of if you call it that.
Yeah.
I also, got involved with some drugs, and the list goes on.
Okay.
And I found myself, at the police station, and
So you
ended
get
up in court.
Yeah, you go to court.
I went to court, and I ended up at Cessnock jail.
Okay. And how long was the what was the time given?
12 months.
12 months. Okay. So you obviously for
Yeah.
caught
yeah.
with an illegal substance and
My first offence ever. So I didn't know, anything more to that at the time. All I know is that I got into trouble, and this is the punishment, dealing, and so forth. So I did 12 months at Cessnock.
yep.
And yeah, so how
And your parents are
my parents arrived in Australia, 89.
yep.
So again, they arrived in Sydney, and then moved to Newcastle. We stayed in Newcastle for a little while, and then moved to Brisbane.
Wow.
So,
So okay, so but you're at that time you're still in Sydney. So I also understand that Newcastle. You're also I understand that you get you make bail.
yes, the good behaviour bond
Yep.
helped me ease off a few little,
Yeah.
and so
So you head home. You stay or you head home.
no. So I was okay. So this is what happened. I was doing 12 years.
12 months.
12 months. So the story goes, 12 months I was in Cessnock for.
Yep.
I was doing 12 months, but I didn't end up doing 12 months because, like I said,
behaviour.
good
Yep.
behaviour bond. And I want to thank someone because my mother actually bailed me out, and I was only in there for less than 6 months.
And this would have obviously come as a bit of a shock to your mum.
That's correct. Mum had no idea. She found out because I had not told my family about my situation at the time. It just happened so quickly that I ended up in there, and the next thing I knew was.
And that's how it
that.
happens. That's exactly
That's
how
right.
it happens. Just
And so I get this phone call, and I came to the phone, and my mother was on the phone.
yeah, wow.
And so she paid for my my bond and got me out. She bailed me out, and so the first thing that I wanted to do was to actually head home. So I got on the bus and travelled to Brisbane
Yep.
and reunited with my family up there.
And you're, well, like you were saying, you're about 19, 20 at this
I was
time?
around 19, yeah, going to 20.
Yeah.
And so I arrived in Brisbane, and I got off the bus and head home. And so
And how was that heart-wrenching moment when you walk in and your mum's...
yeah, look, I my mum, like as usual, welcoming me back home, and we had a chat, and so things just grew from there, and hoping for a better run this time. So during the time when I arrived back to Brisbane, I had to report in the police station.
Yeah.
And I had to do 12 months.
And I also understand your mum sort of has that moment with you where, she has that conversation with you in regards to, what your plans are for your future.
So yeah, so we that was a very important time in my life because I have to quickly realize that my direction in life wasn't going too well for me.
Sure.
And I have to wake up and pretty much change my life around.
Because I remember you also saying that sort of when you left Newcastle and you went back home, you sort of started falling back into the same bullshit patterns, and
I got too comfortable again in my comfort zone. I would go out and hang out with some friends during my parole.
Yeah.
And so that led me back into the actual,
Into that bullshit.
to the shithole.
Yeah. So your mum has a sit down with you, and what's the basically?
So she
what's put on
planted the
table?
seed.
Yeah.
Right. And trying to help me get on the right path. Knowing me at the time, you know, I was pretty casual about life, and
Yeah.
there was so much out there, like, you know, any kid could
just
fall
wanted to,
easily, and
100%.
And so I hung out with once again the wrong crowd, and this is when I started hanging out in the clubs.
Yeah.
And start doing some drugs and some more stuff.
Yeah.
And ended back in the cell and stuff. So
Just
it was in and out. I wasn't proud,
yeah.
but I quickly realized that my mum was right in that
Yeah.
first chat we had. And so I ended back home. And
You don't when you do that, when you sort of do that shit, you don't realize just how much hurt you're causing. You know what I mean? You're just
Absolutely.
You're selfish in regards to what
I was selfish.
You know what I mean?
And I discard everything my mum had said, and I thought I was untouchable, and I thought, well, you know, when I'm ready, you know, I'm ready.
Yeah.
But I quickly realized that I can't keep doing this. It's hurting my mum, you know, in a big way. You know, it's one of those things. You know, she was my queen. She was my motivator. She was everything to me. She's my mother, and you know, and here I am.
And I also know that your mum has passed.
Yes, rest in peace, Mum.
Rest in peace, Mrs. Fidow. And so, Joe, you sit down, obviously, and what do you come to? What is the conclusion you come to with?
So I was at my crossroad, bro.
Yeah.
And you know, I've come to realize, like I said, that it's either I change my life, change my life around, or I go down this path.
Keep going. Yep.
And you know, keep getting locked up and so forth. So I didn't want to hurt my mum anymore. So once again, we sat down on the table and discussed my future.
Yeah.
So then my mum asked the question, son, I would like to see you excel in life and have a better future than
every mother's wish.
You know, every mother's wish.
Yep.
And so I made a promise to my mother that I think I want to do music. I want to take up music and be good at it.
And you had no musical background prior to this?
Well, apart from church, because that's where I learnt everything from.
Yeah.
I wanted to try something different.
Yeah.
And so I started, you know, writing and so forth at home with no instrument or no equipment whatsoever.
And once this decision is sort of cemented, something special happens. I think you were saying your mum surprises you.
Yeah, so once again, my mum, you know, my motivator and everything.
Yeah.
She came home one day and surprised me with a keyboard. I was
Casio?
pretty much blown away. No, it wasn't a Casio. It was one of the top range, like on top of the range.
Yeah, wow.
Keyboard that had a built-in sequencer. It was a Korg M1.
Wow.
If any musicians out there, I'm pretty sure you all know what Korg M1.
We're talking what? Close to 20-odd-year-old. Yeah, wow, that's a vintage.
Yes, and this thing wasn't this piece of equipment wasn't just cheap. It came with a nice price tag on it.
Yeah.
And I was pretty much.
She believes from that conversation you have at the table, she then takes you on the next step and goes and invests into your music future.
Absolutely, like just to.
And you have no keyboard, or you don't. I mean, you've got basic experience, obviously, but you don't have any sort of knowledge to, because I mean that would have been pretty much the state of the art equipment for its time.
Exactly. That was the most expensive keyboard at the time, and Mum came home with it.
Yeah.
And I realized that my mum is serious about this change, this promise I made.
Yeah.
So she went out and bought me this keyboard. However, I sat with this keyboard overnight and I studied the whole thing, and I was able
Yeah,
to
right.
actually program my first song on it. I had a cousin named Paul Mariner at the time that came to visit.
Yeah.
He also actually helped me understand a few things, and he's responsible for my knowledge at the time for, you know, working out the MIDI chords and stuff and so forth.
So you're just tapping away,
I was just
making
tapping
beats.
away, making beats, you know. I was just pushing buttons,
Yeah.
and not knowing what it does.
Wow.
And so he was the one that guided me through. So we lived together for a little bit, and then he and I went to the studio and recorded my first demo
Yeah. Wow.
of that idea that I started with the Korg M1.
And this is sort of where the music journey starts to take off. Obviously, where you now start
This is where it
building
took off for me.
confidence, and you start gigging in Brisbane, and
And then I started going back out to the nightlife with Paul, and we met up with some people, and that's how I met Richard and Jay.
And that's okay. And obviously, from this now, you know, you've seen
That
this.
eventuated out to having the three member group.
Three members. So that was
Jay,
yourself.
Richard, myself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. And basically now there's light at the end of the tunnel. You're growing more passionate in this music.
That's right.
And obviously around that time as well, like Sydney was as well. So that scene, that R&B scene, was really starting to pop off and become quite known.
in a huge way. Yeah.
And so obviously you form this little, you know, group, and you know you've got aspirations of doing this seriously. So you also then decide to come to Sydney.
So we now, Jay, Richard, myself had formed a group, Joe RJ, and we were doing some shows around in the night circuit in Brisbane.
Yep.
However, that wasn't enough for us to actually land a deal.
Yep.
Knowing the fact that Brisbane was just a smaller bite to the the mothership. Sydney had all the headquarters, the main branch of every label,
right.
and so I had to make a decision. It was it was a hard one, but I had to. I said to the boys, I'm gonna leave Brisbane.
Yep.
In searching for a record deal for us.
Wow.
And had no idea how that
How
was
to
gonna,
go about, yeah.
how it was going to come about.
And I think the moral of that little story there is be good to your mum.
Yes.
Because
100.
Because from that time that you sort of made that commitment to your mum, the ball just started rolling from there. You obviously, that's the time you arrive in Sydney, and that same night you go out where you meet.
That's right.
Matthew
I made my
O'Connor
mum a promise that I'm leaving Brisbane once again. I'm leaving you.
Yeah.
With this one promise that when I come back, or the next time I'll see you, I'll bring something home.
Yeah, wow.
And so
how good is that?
That was the promise I made to my mum for the last time. And that changed my whole life.
Yeah. And I bet when you came back, you brought her fame.
Yes. But knowing
Mum,
my
I'm
mum,
famous.
knowing my mum, she just wanted a big hug
Yeah, wow.
and happy for me.
Yeah, she would have been wrapped.
And so, so then I packed my things and I booked a bus.
Back on that Greyhound.
And travelled to Sydney for the first time.
Yeah, wow. Mate, I'm going to go back to, you guys now. So you guys have formed this 4-part band now. So how does the whole culture thing sort of
eventuated?
How does this eventuate from there?
So culture started after Eric had joined.
Yep.
It's now officially a group, but without a name.
Right.
So we had to sleep over, just to gather some ideas and things, and we came up with the name Culture, Kulcha.
Yes.
And Culture was born.
Culture was born. And so now you guys. So what's first on the? You know, what's first? What's the procedure from here?
So now we have to
album, single.
So before we get to that point, we have to agree on an agreement once again with Matt.
Sure.
Matt would have to offer us a contract,
Yes.
a production agreement, so that we can start working on some demos and start demoing up an album.
And I take it so from there, you guys are sort of doing the music part of it, obviously with Matthew, but now Matthew's going to shop the deal.
That's correct.
For culture.
So remember, Boys in Black had just
An indie.
had just left their deal.
Yes.
Now the studio is free, and so we were able to come in and start working on our record. Yeah. Sure.
So from there, you guys start working on your first single.
So we didn't work on our first single. We had to write up at least 30 to 40 as many tracks, so that we can actually plan out if it's going to be an album or single. We didn't have a plan, a specific plan for singles or anything at that time. We just needed to actually lay as many demos down.
And I'm just going to skip and jump here. Mo Brown is now in...
Mo Brown had moved from Kent Street to Ultimo, Mountain Street in Ultimo.
Okay. And that's where that's
so this is now the new studio.
Yeah.
And that's where Boys in Black had left the actual Mo Brown scene, like the studio.
Okay.
They faded out from there.
So I take it in the music scale of things, Matthew's executive producer, I take it, and
Matthew, yes, executive producer.
You are co-producer.
I was literally just a rookie. I didn't know anything about the business.
Sure.
All I know is that I'm a songwriter, and I was looking at all the options, becoming a producer, future producer as well.
Sure.
So I had all this, in the palm of my hand, but I had to start from somewhere.
And okay, let's go to where we write the first track.
Yes. So now the deal's signed. We signed an agreement with Matt, and now Matthew had the plan of how we're going to tackle this project.
Okay.
So I found myself in the studio every day, and yeah. So I started making music. I started programming and just get familiarized with the equipment. At this point, there's so many equipment that I've never seen in the studio that I wanted to get my hands on. So the learning process of that, it took me like at least a month to master everything.
Yeah.
So I started then programming, and Shaka Jam happened to be the first track that
and this is all in now. I want you to tell me about a few moments. Like I know we had a few drinks in, and you said to me, Matt used to lock you up in the studio. lock you up in the studio.
I mean, I guess I'll take it like by all means necessary, and I was okay with it. Even though I was locked in there like
what,
overnight.
deadbolt or just
deadbolt, whatever.
So you couldn't get out.
I could not leave the studio, the premises. I had to.
That's cruelty to animals.
I
Holmes.
pretty much was locked in illegally. Thank you to you, Matthew. But I didn't know that until later. I had my food delivered.
Yeah,
in the
wow.
Studio.
So it's like being in a cell again. It's like.
And so yeah. But the deal was you have to complete.
Yeah. Finish the
songs,
tracks.
Day in, day out, and stuff, so forth.
So how does Shaka Jam come about?
It was just one of those moments where you jam, and I later realized that that's how you get the magic out.
Yeah.
And I'm
100%.
pretty sure a lot of producers, songwriters out there
100%.
would understand or agree with me on that. I just pretty much just jammed, and this chord that caught my attention, it led me to actually to Shaka Jam.
Yeah, wow. And I just want to say for any of the viewers as well, we're going to link on your page link where you could view these tracks. Yeah,
Absolutely.
And there's also, I know you'll also have some footage, some old footage from back then.
Yeah, see, back then, like, I always had a camera, and
That's
at
right.
this point in time, like, I didn't have any money to buy or purchase a camera, so I was just blindfolded. Like, I just went in with, like, okay, whatever happens from here, I hope someone's witnessing what's going on and stuff. So
I remember I was privileged to be backstage a few times, and you'd always be tucked away with your handycam and just Sony handycam just picking up.
Later I invested into a camera because I knew I have to
Capture.
document a lot of
yeah.
this stuff, and you know, for the future, like for my kids, you know, and it's good to have that.
100%.
You know, so that was always been part of my plan.
Joe, with Shaka Jam, right? So this was when you did this. This was the single that you had no idea. You just
I had no idea. Like we, you know, I called the boys. The boys came into the studio and like we were all hyping. You know, like we were just jumping up and down, excited the fact that this song may become a single.
Who grabs it? Who's listening? Who bites at it?
So when the boys came down and we start writing it, and it started to grow into something like how, you know, every song, you know.
And who picks it up? Which of the majors pick this up?
So at this point, like we were just demoing. Okay, so before we got to that part, we had Shaka Jam, Don't Be Shy. Those were the two tracks that I worked on from the beginning.
Yeah.
And Matthew had some contacts, and you know, Mark Pope from Warner had visited Matthew in the studio, and Matthew played him the song. So I guess that's where the hookup came from.
And with the with both these tracks at the moment, so you guys have written pretty much.
Prior to that, we like I said, you know, before Mark Pope even lay foot in the studio, we had more tracks that we worked on, demoed up for a complete album, but we didn't know which song, and we had no deals whatsoever on the table here. We were just
and Mark Pope is from
Warner Music.
Warner Music,
yes.
So Mark likes the track. He hears the track and likes the track.
So later during the process, you know, every time we come back and work on certain songs, it gave him a clearer direction of each song's where in the market as well. But we didn't know anything about marketing and promotion. What we knew was just to create our job, and that's as artists.
Okay, so Mark Pope is now in the studio, and he's hearing and seeing and liking what's happening. So obviously, from here on in, Matthew's trying to cut a deal. What happens from here on in?
So Mark Pope came in and showed interest. However, before he came in, we had to complete Shaka Jam as a full track, and take it to the final stage of it.
Yep.
And so we had to shoot a video.
This is for Shaka Jam.
This is for Shaka Jam to showcase Shaka Jam to anyone that besides Mark Pope, because there were other offers as well from outside.
Yeah.
So Matthew contacted Paul Finnick. Thank you, Paul Finnick, to shoot the video.
Is that Fat
from our own resources? Fat Pizza, yes, Fat Pizza, Paul.
Wow.
So we, with our own resources, we got Shaka Jam video done, and that pretty much sold the whole deal.
So that's how the whole.
So when Mark Pope came in, and when he saw that video of Shaka Jam, and mind you that was just a low budget video, you know, just to get the idea and as a visual.
Again, I was privileged to be part of that whole.
Yes, so you know, And so that's how when Mark Pope came in and he saw the video,
Yeah,
and he
it was
was
like-
like he was
Yeah.
he was like,
And
this is
it would have been because, like, again, at that time in Australia, this wasn't sort of, R&B was not.
it was still new.
Yeah.
Like there were groups that were out at the time, hip hop groups and so forth. But this is now a new vibe coming in, because
how the urban culture
'cause there's hip-hop.
became mainstream, like it was
Absolutely.
brought to that forefront.
and the sound that we were pulling, we were actually combining, or I should say fusing, 3 different styles together.
Was the 808s being used then?
808s is one of the famous drum machine that
Yeah.
I don't think that machine will ever
Go out. I think
Go out in a
Kanye
big
brought
way.
it back pretty heavy as well.
The
So yeah, that's an interesting time. So obviously something also happens in this whole signing where this deal almost crumbles.
well, that's the thing. All good things always
Can come to a dramatic end.
This was the most important moment for us, because we had to decide. There was an agreement.
Hang on, Joe. You know what?
Yes.
This has been an awesome interview, and I would like to save that part for part 2.
All right.
What eventuates. But what I also do have is I have a few. You've been kind enough to send me a few stills. So I'm just going to take people back to a time in your younger day, and the type of caliber and celebrities that you sort of hung around with and was privileged to be around in that time. When those acts came to Australia and did their thing at the entertainment centre at the time. So would you be kind enough to let me reflect
man.
on these stills?
Sure.
Okay. Well, if we look to the screen here, Joe, explain to me who's in this picture.
Okay, so that's Tevin Campbell. He's promo tour in Australia for his album,
Yes.
and so that
Which this was for Can We Talk?
I'm pretty sure it was Can We Talk
Yeah.
and I'm Ready album.
And I take it this is the band members?
Yeah, these are the boys, Jay, Richard, and Eric, and myself. We were at the Hard Rock Cafe
For this
for
photo.
this promo night for Tevin Campbell.
Wow. This here is obviously the Australian Awards at the time, yeah?
Okay, so this is the most, or I should say, the peak.
The prestigious.
Yes, the achievement night, and
Sure.
it's the highlight of culture, receiving 2 music awards at the Australia Coca-Cola Music Awards.
Wow.
The Choice of the People, which is equivalent to the ARIAs.
So this was most popular single
Most popular new act
and most popular new act.
and the best new single, I think.
Wow.
Shaka Jam.
How good is that?
Yes.
And here we are.
Our photo shoot of the group for our second album, we were just going through some
Handsome boys, man. Handsome boys.
going through some fashion there,
Yeah,
and
nice.
finding out the right look for the album.
This is live on stage.
This is one of our early shows
Yeah.
before we signed a deal, performing around in Sydney
Yeah.
just to get our name out.
Yeah,
So
wow.
we attended at one of the, I don't know, Blue Light Disco.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of those shows were out at the time, so we were one of the
One of the acts that
acts that
Yeah,
they would
wow.
book for those shows.
here we are again.
This one here, I believe it's the same cover shot for I think it was Do You Like It?
This is off the first album?
Second album.
Second album.
And just one of the shots that,
You guys kind of left that street look,
yes.
cleaned up your act a
Now-
bit.
Now stepping up to the new, the boys to men kind of look.
You guys look married here, man.
But yeah, so
Okay,
the boys once again.
that's the look I remember.
This right here is one of our favorite shots. This is when we were deciding for the album cover and so
Yeah.
forth. Promotion shots, stills.
Yeah.
We did a lot of photos, and this is one of our main promotion shot
Wow.
with our signatures on it for our fans and our friends, I should say.
And there was a lot of that too, wasn't there?
Friends
A lot of
of culture.
signing,
Absolutely.
in-store
We were
brushes,
doing in
and
stores all over the
Virgin.
everywhere,
Yeah.
pretty much. Yes.
Wow. Miss Janet Jackson.
Yes, looking at that photo, it's just like we were still at that time in the backstage entertainment center with Janet.
Wow.
If you remember, the Sydney show was back to back 4 times.
Yeah.
Like there was 4 shows in
4
Sydney.
shows. Yeah, that's
And
right.
so
Sold out on every.
sold out in every show.
And I still remember the car park was chockers, like even outside.
Yes.
So inside was full, but there was just people everywhere.
That's right.
That was the COVID-free periods.
COVID free. Never thought of.
Wow. Miss Lauren Hill.
And yes, this is one of my favorite shots of, well, the only shot that I had with the Queen,
Yeah, man.
Lauren Hill, backstage when they toured Australia.
So this was the Fugees, or
This
was
is the
her-
Fugees. Lauren came out with the 2 boys and did this show, the Australian
That's
tour.
nuts.
And we took this shot at the backstage.
Close, bro. Very.
Yes.
You're sitting very.
Not close enough, but yeah, close.
That's awesome.
She was one of my...
What you also? I remember you telling me that Lauren sort of had a little say to you.
Yeah, like I just needed a photo, but she invited me to sit right next to her, and then it led up to another. Like I threw a question at her, and she replied back, and I guess my question was, what was her message to new up and coming artists, and to better their performances or
career,
whatever
yeah,
may
yeah.
be, and she replied back, you never give up your dream.
Yeah. Wow.
Don't let anyone tell you can't do it.
And what a journey she's had as well. Like,
And
amazing journey.
yes, I never forget that.
She kept it real.
She kept it real. Yeah.
Jeanne?
Janae.
Wow.
That was at the backstage.
What was their track?
Hey, Mr. DJ.
Hey, Mr. DJ.
Yeah. Yes, that was Salt and Pepper Tour.
What a tour that was.
They support. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were part of the supporting acts for Salt and Pepper.
That was huge. I remember that like it was yesterday. And that was over what?
Very
over
humble girls.
25 years ago?
Yes, 25. That was in 1994.
Yeah, wow.
Very humble ladies, and down to earth.
Yeah.
Very, very
They were good.
Friendly.
They were good too, man. They were
great.
Yeah.
Very talented.
And you got Eric and Jay and yourself.
Yes, Richard's. He's somewhere.
Yeah, I
He's
could
not in
imagine.
this shot.
We won't ask where Richard is.
But yeah, he was warming up for the next show.
Yeah, Richard's backstage.
Doing push-ups.
Yeah, or push in.
Push in. Push. Yeah. And this
all
is
the
just some
memorabilia.
highlights
All the magazines.
of the journey that we
Yeah.
had,
Wow, man.
and all the mags and articles and stuff. Let's just put them all together just to
Nuts.
give
What
you
a
a nice...
man! What a time, huh? What a time! What a buzz!
And yeah.
Boys again. Oh, that's me. Joe,
And that's the show.
mate. Thank you so much. Like I said, please, can we do a part 2 to obviously where it where the good stuff starts happening in.
Yes, let's bring it on.
Thank you very much. I also just want to thank everyone out there for viewing the show. Please leave a comment. And again, if you enjoyed it, please let us know. I am going to do another part with you, Joe. I also want to thank the cameraman. You've been an absolute blessing.
Yes.
What a guy. What a setup. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.